So, I feel like maybe after 2 days, my internal organs have finally gotten back into their proper places. If you've been keeping up with my community posts on YouTube, you'll know that night before last, I got to go see Sunn O in Birmingham, and I'm vaguely familiar with their material. So, from a musical end, I knew what to expect, but I had no idea what to expect from a live performance end of things. And I've been to dozens upon dozens of concerts in my life. Like, over the past 19 to 20 years, I've seen close, if not now more than 300-ish bands, and I am no stranger to loud concerts. But this really took the cake. This was by a very extreme margin the loudest concert I've ever been to in my life. So much so to where, even with earplugs in, it genuinely felt like I was having my cells physically rearranged in my body in real time. And it's difficult to describe what that feels like. Because to kind of illustrate, I've been going to concerts more than half my life at bare minimum. Like, since I was 13, and I'm now 33. So since like 2003, I've been going to concerts yearly, often multiple times every year. Like, I started with Smash Mouth in 2003, and then the very next year, I kind of upgraded to My Chemical Romance when they were still touring for Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge. And then the next year, Seether was touring with Shinedown, so I went to go and see them back when they were still touring in promotion of The Remedy, back when that was still a thing. God, I feel old. But then the next year, I upgraded even further and went to go see Nine Inch Nails because on June 6th, 2006, for 666, they actually played in Birmingham. And I was lucky enough to go and see that because it was 4 days before my birthday, and I thought at the time that was the coolest early birthday present to get to see Nine Inch Nails. And that was such a cool show to get to go and witness at that age. And I still look back upon that very fondly. But then, of course, since I then afterwards had my driver's license and I was in my mid-teens, I was getting more and more into metal, so I, at that point, started actively seeking out more and more metal bands. And so I started going to concerts like Korn and, The Acacia Strain, Job for a Cowboy, Amon Amarth, Gwar, things like that. And I've even got a list pulled up here that is now horribly outdated and even at the time was very loosely put together of concerts that I had attended. And it's like, it's about what you would expect from someone in their mid-teens who had just gotten their license and was trying to go to every metal show possible within like a 2 to 3 state radius. It's like going to things like Slayer and, Lamb of God, Mastodon, Children of Bodom, Dimmu Borgir, Behemoth, Dream Theater, Opeth, The Faceless, Cryptopsy, Despised Icon, Chimera and Deathclock, and just the list goes on and on. Like I said, now it's probably closer to like 300-ish bands over the past 2 decades. But even then, I was originally raised on stuff like jazz and classical and things like that, so even with my immense love of metal, I always tried to keep the list pretty diverse. Anytime I saw just something cool come around, like Birmingham or Atlanta or Tennessee or anywhere relatively close by, I tried to go. With stuff like Bella Fleck and the Flecktones, or Andy McKee, Victor Wooten, Michael Manring, Porcupine Tree. And then there's stuff like a Silver Mount Zion, which is like half the members of Godspeed You Black Emperor, Amanda Palmer, and just Katy Perry was another one that I got to see years and years ago, back when she was still touring in promotion of like Dark Horse, because a friend of mine wanted me to go with them and they offered to pay for my ticket. So I was just like, cool, hell yeah, free Katy Perry show, why not? And it was fun. It was really fun. I'm not even gonna pretend like it wasn't. And other stuff like Depeche Mode, you get the idea. Baseline, base point is that I'm no stranger to concerts and loud music. And I'm sure I can speak for most people who have ever been to a concert of any size or any form, regardless of the genre, that the closer you get to the stage, the louder it gets. Often to a pretty painful level, especially depending on the genre. Even a lot of country shows can get pretty damn loud, especially depending on how big the shows are and how many people are attending. There'll be walls of speakers on either side of the stage that have to project out over hundreds, if not thousands of people, so it can get really loud really quick. But in my experience, the loudest shows you will ever attend are the ones that are inside the more quaint venues, where the attendance will generally range between 50 to a couple hundred people at most, and you're able to just freely walk up to the front of the stage, and all of the amps are right there facing you, and you're just getting blasted by whatever's coming out of those amps, regardless of what genre it is. No matter who's playing, those are usually the loudest concerts you will ever go to, and I'm sure most people would agree. And when we went night before last to the Saturn in Birmingham, and we got in there and saw what was waiting for us, I knew that we were in for it. Because Sunn O is widely regarded as being one of the gods, if not the undisputed gods, of drone metal, or just drone noise ambient music, period. And for the uninitiated who don't know, shorthand explanation of that is basically, like, if you know what stoner metal is, or stoner rock, you know that it's very slowed down, slow tempo music. Take that and put it on Xanax, basically. But a more clear explanation of it would be, you take a single note and stretch out that one note for anywhere between 30 seconds to multiple minutes, and that's an entire song. A lot of times with no vocals whatsoever. And that's basically Sunn O. I'm not even joking or exaggerating. And they are the pioneers of this. And they are, like I said, widely regarded as the godfathers of this. The two founders of Sunn O, Stephen O'Malley and Greg Anderson, are sound engineers, and it shows majorly in what they do and how they create these sounds and soundscapes within what they do. To kind of illustrate what we were dealing with that night, take a look at their actual setup from that night. Now remember, this is two guitarists, no vocalist, that's it. And this is their setup. Yeah, you're not seeing that incorrectly either. That's 2 bass cabs on either side. So that's 4 bass cabs in general, and then 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 amps total, making a total of 16 amps. 12 guitar amps and 4 bass cabs split between just 2 guitarists. That's it. And I say that's it as if that's nothing, but that is a ridiculous amount to be divided up between just two guitarists. That's a ridiculous amount, period, to have on one stage at all, let alone between just two guitarists. And so you can imagine what that would sound like when all of that is being on at the same time, and it's all being run through two guitars and being played at the same time and being blasted directly in your face. Now, for a brief illustration, because I was not taking videos, Jacob was, and he was standing next to me. This is a very short example of what they sound like when they're playing, because it's very difficult to describe what they even sound like without actually showing people. And I can't even really find the correct words. It is similar to what I explained earlier, where you take one note and just stretch it for as long as possible. But more specifically, if you know what a baritone guitar is or a baritone bass is, then you'll have a better understanding of what I'm about to show you, because they've basically taken both of their guitars and not just turned them into baritone guitars, which is the bass equivalent of a guitar, but they've taken their guitars and turned them into baritone basses, which are far down-tuned basses, but then taken that and then pitch shifted them down multiple octaves below even what baritone basses can go to. So if you can mentally picture what that would sound like, it's basically just, it's not music at that point anymore. It's just vibrations. That's all it is. It just becomes auditory vibrations. There's no melody, there's no music. It's just feeling at that point. And that's precisely what's kind of made them so famous. It's no longer a musical experience. It's an auditory feeling that you're getting, literally a feeling. Because when we were there, like I said, I originally went into this already kind of knowing, because I have a couple of their albums from like back in 2009, but I still didn't fully comprehend what I was about to experience. Even with seeing all of those amps, I knew it was going to be loud. I knew that. I'm not stupid. But until they actually turned on everything and strummed out a note, I was so taken aback, I kind of jumped, and for the good first half of the show, I was standing there just slack-jawed in actual awe of what I was witnessing. So, to give you a brief example of what this sounds like, and it's going to sound deep-fried, just spoiler alert, this is what the recording is and what it sounded like to us, even with earplugs in. It didn't make it any better, because it's, like I said, it's just vibrations at that point. At such a low frequency, it's all it is. So check this out. Yeah, and if that didn't drive the point home well enough, here's a slightly better example where you can maybe hear notes change. was pretty much the entire show. For about 2 hours. That was the entire show. I'm not exaggerating. They played 5 songs. 5 songs for 2 hours. There was no breaks, and you could never tell when one song switched to the other. That's how that works. There was such a seamless transition in between songs, and the notes are stretched so far apart that there was no distinction that one song had ended and another song had began. Not to mention the fact that the songs are already so long, anywhere between 9 minutes to 15 minutes a piece, minimum, that you couldn't tell where one had ended and the other had began. And the vast majority of people in the audience were pretty much in the same boat as I was, where they were just standing there pretty much in awe of what was going on. Or the people in the further back in the audience who had no idea what was going on were just sitting there like that for pretty much the entirety of the show, just holding their ears for dear life, waiting for it to end, because they had likely gotten drugged there by their significant other and wanted to be anywhere except there, which I completely understand. It's certainly not for everyone. And I'm not going to try and really sell you on a band like this. I completely get that it's not for everyone. And like I said, this isn't... It's one of those bands where, I can see listening to them on, say, CD or vinyl or Spotify or, whatever format like that you want to listen to it on. And if you're, say, stoned or tripping or whatever, you can easily vibe out to something like that, or possibly even go to sleep, because so little is going on and it's so strung out in the way that it is that you can just kind of zone out to it, which is in many ways, I suppose, the point. But the real point, I think, with a band like this is to experience it live. Because clearly, it's more of an auditory, physical experience, to where you go to a show like that to physically experience it. You're not going to listen for some kind of melodic, high or anything. I mean, you're not really going to see them for some kind of melodic experience. If anything, they're the antithesis of that. And so I completely understand that they are, by definition, a niche band. So really, if I were to try and sell anyone on this, it would be their live experience. And I do honestly highly recommend going and seeing them live. It is an experience. Now, would I recommend going and seeing them more than once? Me personally, no. It is one of those things where I really enjoyed it once. Don't think I could do it again. And that's fine. Once was all I need. And I think for a lot of people that's the case. You see them once, you get to say that you've seen them, and that's all you really need. But being able to see them once is really all you need. You only ever need to see an act like this once to have that kind of experience, because you're never going to see something like this again. No other band can do what they do and to do it as well as they're doing it. And I think that's partially why they are so massively respected. And it tracks as well, because their credentials speak for themselves. Beyond the fact that they're audio engineers, and that absolutely shows with what they're able to accomplish in a live setting, it's unreal what kind of sounds they're able to create. Not just on CD, obviously, because you're in a studio and you can do all kinds of crazy things in a studio with that kind of equipment. But in a live setting, to be able to recreate that kind of sonic experience is truly incredible. And I think that is why they are so highly regarded and respected in the music world. And like I said, their credentials speak for themselves. Stephen O'Malley, he's worked with some of the most respected people in the music industry. I mean, Sunn O has their own amp company, for God's sakes, called Sunn Amplifiers. Not to mention their own record label called Southern Lord. And in that first video I showed with the wall of speakers, the two that were in the middle were their own amps, and their own heads up top were Sunn amplifiers. And that by itself is insane, that they have not only their own record label, but their own amp brand. And hundreds, if not thousands of people within not just the noise and drone and stoner genres, but also the metal world use and swear by their amplifier brand, because they are genuinely really reliable and really good sounding. They clearly know what they're doing. They are not just good sound engineers, but they know how to build a quality product. And I'm not even trying to sell anyone on anything. I'm just speaking the truth. Like, their name carries weight for a reason. Beyond this, out of all of the albums that they've done, White One was named the 18th loudest album of all time from 2003. That by itself is an incredible accomplishment, and also lends credence to what I was referring to earlier with, when you go to one of their shows, you need to be prepared for what you're getting yourself into. Beyond what I was showing you with the wall of speakers, they're not just for show. You need to have your belt tightened and a really good set of earplugs, which we made the mistake of not having at the beginning of the show. And Stephen O'Malley, their guitarist, that was on the right side of the stage in the videos that I showed you of them playing, he kind of poked fun at me for, because at the beginning of their show, when they were coming out to sound check, he apparently overheard me talking to the guy that was standing next to me about how it was the first time that I had ever seen them live. And without saying a word, because I saw him out of the corner of my eye, you know, kind of tuning his guitar, and he kind of, you know, looked over at me while I was talking to the dude about having never seen them, and he kind of silently, you know, turned up the volume knob on his guitar and just really quickly just strummed out a note on his guitar and just went boom. And I leapt out of my skin because of how loud it was. And Steven and a few other people around me, of course, just died laughing. And so, you know, a lot of people had a laugh at my expense, and rightfully so. But Steven walks off stage for a couple of minutes, because I assumed he was just done, you know. He comes back out a couple of minutes later. He hands me this little treasure on a roll of toilet paper, which apparently he did this originally because it was their last date of the tour. But he hands this to me and he says, "Don't shit yourself when we start," and just immediately cracked himself up. So I took it, you know. It says, if you notice, December 6, 2023, Saturn, which is the venue in Birmingham. They did their Sunn O logo, and it just says, "The End." This is the end of their tour. And they did a little doodle. So I thought that was cool and funny. So yeah, that was nice and really cool. It was just one of those things where you never know what kind of fun stuff's going to happen at shows. Beyond that, Stephen O'Malley also has his own incredible list of credentials beyond, you know, him forming Sunn O with Greg Anderson, the other guitarist who was on stage with him, because they co-founded Sunn O and the record label and their amp company together. And it's insane the things that they have done in the music world and the people that they've collaborated with. I mean, here on Stephen O'Malley's wiki page, you know, he's a founding member of several bands, including Sunn O, Thor's Hammer, Burning Witch, KTL, Kanat, and then within these projects and alone, he has collaborated with a variety of musical artists, including, and then there's a whole bevy of very reputable and famous musicians. And by all means, feel free to go looking through all of these people, because many of them are highly regarded in the music industry, not least of which being people like Alan Moore, who's a comic book artist for like The Watchmen, V for Vendetta, Ballad of Halo Jones, Swamp Thing, Batman the Killing Joke, From Hell. And that particular one is because O'Malley has also designed record covers since the early 90s for bands such as Earth, Burzum, Emperor, Mayhem, Gehenna, Boris, Dissection, Oniatrix, Point Never, and Cathedral. And then, you know, other very famous individuals like Attila Czar, who, if you know who that is, then you know exactly what I'm about to say, who's the vocalist for the most famous black metal band in history, being Mayhem. Other very reputable people like Lee Dorian, former member of Napalm Death and later frontman of Cathedral, like we saw down here. Then also the famous Japanese metal band Boris. It's crazy the people that he's worked with. Yeah, Daniel O'Sullivan from Miasma and the Carousel of Headless Horses, Ulver, Sunn O, of course, Athanor, Lanikia, Miracle, Mothlight, and many others. Christopher Rigg from Ulver, Arcturus, and Borknagar. And the list goes on and on and on. And I found it also pretty cool and interesting that at the end of their show, Greg Anderson, their other guitarist, just at one point for like their big finale and finish, decided to just yank out his guitar cable and just go around the front row of fans and let people just grab his guitar cable and let the natural feedback from people touching his guitar cable go through the amps and let that be just part of the sound of the like the sonic sound coming through the amps, and that be part of like their big crescendoing finish. And I was also one of the people that he just went up and like grabbed my hands and clutched my hands around the guitar cable. And I thought that was really cool and fun. And apparently at one point, because I was holding up the big roll of toilet paper, he saw that, decided to yank off their set list, which was taped down with an enormous 2 strips of duct tape, and handed it to me. And I thought that was really cool too. And the dude that was standing next to me, you could tell he looked so upset and disappointed because he obviously wanted it. And I kind of felt bad, but there was no way in hell I was going to give this up. So yeah, there was Mocking, Jubilex, Butches, Ranlord, and Everett. Now, here's the thing. Obviously, I tried to look these songs up because I own 2 Sunn O albums. One is Monolith and Dimensions from 2009, and the other is Terrestrials, which was a collaborative album with Ulver from 2014. Beyond that, I'm not really familiar with their actual material. And even then, I've never really listened to them that much. So seeing them live was honestly a pretty new experience for me. Albeit an enjoyable one. But I wasn't really familiar with any of this, so I had to look up these songs and see what albums they were from. And not gonna lie, I didn't have much luck. In fact, the only 2 that I could find were the first 2, which is from... Mocking is from Flight of Behemoth, which was from 2002. So Mocking is short for Mocking Solemnity. And Jubilex is a Burning Witch cover from 1996. And that tracks because, as we saw before, Stephen O'Malley is a former member of Burning Witch, and he was actually a member of Burning Witch during that time, from 95 to 98, and it's a 96 cover. So that makes sense that they would cover that song. However, these last three songs, Butch's, Randlord, and Everett, I couldn't find anything on in any of their singles, their EPs, their collaborative albums, nothing. In fact, I got some really weird results when I Googled these songs. Butch's came back as, with Setlist FM, it came up as Butch's Guns. And then, of course, I got a bunch of results for a place called Butch's Guns from, like, Oklahoma and Vernon, Texas. But, I'm pretty sure that has nothing to do with what I'm looking for or what we're talking about here. But, yeah, apparently it's short for Butch's Guns. So there's that, but beyond that, it's not listed on any of their actual releases. Same goes for Randlord or RX Anlord. I can't find anything on it anywhere. And then for Everett, same thing. Apparently Everett is short for Crank Everett. And same goes for it. It's not listed on any of their releases that have ever existed anywhere. Period. So I have no idea. If anybody out there knows anything about these three songs, let me know. They may be unreleased songs that they're still currently working on like an upcoming release. That's very possible, but I have no idea. Because the search results were completely fruitless endeavors. That being said, I do highly recommend going and seeing them live. Obviously, this isn't going to be the kind of band that you're really going to listen to on a daily basis or just for fun. At least for the vast majority of people. I completely get that. Even for me, it's not something that I'm just gonna listen to for shits and giggles. You get what I'm saying? And I listen to some pretty out there stuff. Often just for shits and giggles. But Sunn O really isn't one of those bands. I do enjoy what they do, and I massively respect what they do and what they've done for music and for audio engineering and everything like that. I completely understand and I 100% respect what they do. There's no arguing or disputing that. But if I do have to promote, if I feel like I do have to promote one thing about them, it's going and seeing them live. If you ever have the opportunity to go and see them perform live, please do it. Don't think twice about it. Just go and see them live, because their live experience is something that you can't really properly put into words to anybody else. Like, I've been trying to think of a proper way to approach this video since the concert, and I feel like even now I'm doing a really piss poor job at properly conveying what the experience was like, or how to really even hype them up or promote them to a realistic level or to a broader audience, because explaining what they do makes them sound so much more boring than what they actually are. Because when you tell someone, oh, well, they do drone music, or like a noise, which is what they do, to an average listener, to an average music consumer, even to diehard fans of eccentric music, that's not the most appealing sounding thing. I completely get that and accept that reality, But the reality of the situation is that if you do go and see them live, one, take earplugs, but two, it is so much more interesting than you would actually expect it to be, because it's almost like it gives you this weird body high. Like, I was stark sober going there, and yet the instant they started playing, like, that kind of constant vibration against your body gave me this really weird high that I haven't experienced in a very long time. If maybe ever, honestly. If I'm just being completely transparent with all of you, it's one of those very unique experiences that it's incredibly difficult to put into words. And I realize that I've been rambling about this for way too long, but please, by all means, if you ever get the opportunity to go and see them, do it. Just do yourself the favor and go and see them, because you won't regret it. Just please also do yourself the favor and take ear protection, because we made that mistake and I had to sprint to the bar and get earplugs, because thankfully the people who were working there, the venue, knew better. And they were selling earplugs for like $1 a piece, so I had to buy 2 pair for myself and Jacob, because if we didn't have access to that, this would be a very different story. Yeah. Go and see them live. They don't tour often, and on the rare occasions that they do tour, they only tour like a maximum of like 5 or 6 dates per tour. So getting to see them isn't easy, and we were extremely, extremely fortunate that the last date of their tour happened to be in Alabama, because they're now situated in France, but they originally formed in Seattle. And even then, even if they were still situated in Seattle, extremely fortunate that we got to go and see them night before last. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say about this whole thing. And like I said, I've been rambling for way too long about this. I didn't mean to keep you all for this long. Yeah. I hope this has properly conveyed my feelings on this whole subject. Just do yourself the favor. Go out to more concerts, because, like I said, they're fun. No matter who it is, what genre it is, do it. Do it more often. Because for as many shows as I've been to in my life, they never get old. You know, no matter who it is that I'm going to see, what genre it happens to be, you know, be it, you know, Bone Thugs and Harmony, you know, Katy Perry, Depeche Mode, you know, the Acacia Strain, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you're going to see. Go and see them. You'll thank yourself afterwards. Even if you're sore as hell and you've got a splitting headache afterwards, the next day, you'll thank yourself, especially years and years down the road. Those memories will persist, and you'll thank yourself, especially the memories you make. The people you meet along the way, those are what's going to persist. And that's ultimately my core message, my core point. It's the memories, and that's what matters most. And that's ultimately the main message of all of this. It's these little things. It's things you pick up along the way that make up the memories in your head. It's the experiences that make up these memories that you cherish the most. So yeah, thank you everyone for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. Take care of yourselves. Hope you have a great night. Peace.